Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this edition of newscast in the English language on Canal the International. I'm called Morinzi at Top Stories. Buea denizens are still in complete dismay following the tragic incident recorded yesterday, which led to the death of 5-year-old Caroline. Activities are gradually returning to normalcy, and the entire education community of her school institution are mourning the deceased shot and killed in Moliko. That was yesterday. And a day after the killing of 5-year-old people, Cameroonians are still saddened by the incident. Social media platforms have been saturated with the crisis, calling for justice to prevail and for an end to the Anglophone crisis. And new measures have been put in place for the proper kickoff of Cameroon's national oil refinery company 2 years after the fire incident, and the signing of the specification accord between Cameroon, CAF and FIFA in preparation for the 2021 African Cup of Nations has been announced for Tuesday, October 19, 2021. Those were major stories. This is right ahead. Buea denizens are still in complete dismay following the shocking incident that led to the death of 5-year-old Caroline. Activities are gradually returning to normalcy, and the entire education community of her school institution are mourning the deceased killed in Moliko yesterday. Details with Ines Ondwambala.
Here is the atmosphere at the Catholic Primary School, Moliko of the Diocese of Buea, following the tragic incident which occurred on October 14, taking away the life of little Caro. Caro would have loved to be here today, but she was killed by a bullet said to have gone astray. Her school is closed this Friday, and this is the door of Class 1, which used to be her classroom. Nobody is found in the school compound. It is a day of mourning. At the institution, this reporter met some school authorities who are still in complete dismay.
This day was a very sad day for us because we lost one of the peoples to a very previous atrocity. So the whole town was very, very saddened to get that kind of stuff. And so we are here in front of the school, and we decided to mourn the child today and to condole with the family. And the teachers have been there the whole day and even late in the night to console the mother. And so we are here now. We decided to close down the school. The trauma was too much. And parents, they were also very, very worried because yesterday they came in by 11 o'clock to get their children, because they don't want that to happen to their own child. So we decided to shut down the school for today and till next week, Tuesday.
So we thank God that after what happened today, there's relative calm, and we are just neighbors to the school in question. It is the primary, nursery primary section, secondary section in the University of Catholic University of Buea, and they are all out. They are staying home today in order to meditate on what happened and to pray for true peace. Because from the incident of yesterday, you could see from the crowd that people are not happy, and that people have a lot of uncertainty about life and about peace in this country, in this community. Being quiet and praying to God in order that we should be enlightened of the way forward and how to respect each other's life. To the family members, we want to say that we are united with them in prayer, and we convey our condolences, and we are together in spirit, and we pray God console them, for we know how it can be hurtful in this type of situation.
At the Little Caro family residence at Lisoka, the environment is deserted. Little Caro is no more. No family member is present. The doors of the house are all closed. In Buea, activities are gradually returning to normalcy. Taxis are circulating in the streets of Buea and locals are going about their daily activities. But the pain gets deeper.
Meantime, the Diocese of Buea has reacted to the killing of 5-year-old people killed by a soldier yesterday in Buea. According to a statement issued by the Bishop of Buea, who says he happened to have witnessed the shocking incident, where he saw the head deformed on the lifeless body of the 6-year-old Caro brutally murdered. It states that the innocent child was brutally murdered by a soldier who was later killed by an angry mob. Bishop announces a special mass to pray for her in the nearest future. We'll come back to that in a subsequent edition of Newscast. Although relative calm has returned in Buea in the southwest region of Cameroon a day after a protest demonstration against the killing of a schoolgirl by elements of the National Gendarmerie, Cameroonians continue to pour out their anger on their different social media platforms. Gladys Ambodibang tells us more.
In search of knowledge, 5-year-old Caro Louise Diale had her brain shattered by an element of the Cameroon National Gendarmerie, who through mob justice was equally killed in retaliation. The shocking and traumatizing pictures and videos of the little girl in her own pool of blood went viral, drawing sympathy from all social strata. Twitter handle and other social media platforms were saturated with reactions. The Cameroon Renaissance Movement Party, for example, saddened by the death of the little girl, also deplored jungle justice meted on the soldier, but then blames the government for blindly pursuing a war against its own population in the 2 English-speaking regions of the country, and says it was time for Cameroonians to say it is enough over all the unnecessary killings. Akeremuna of the Now movement lacked words to express its pain, just like Kawala, who talked of new hashtags every day and says it is just too much. According to the British High Commission in Yaoundé, attacking children is unacceptable and applaud the announcement of an investigation into the shocking incident. Agbobala, the human rights activist, has condemned with impunity the military action and called on the state to investigate the matter. Artists and comedians are also distressed with the death of the schoolgirl, describing it as inhumane while crying that the bloodshed is too much.
And new measures have been put in place for the proper kickoff of Cameroon's national oil refinery company, Sonora, 2 years after a fire incident. The objective of the restructuring agreement of Sonora Bank was signed this Friday with local banking institutions, thereby ending the fear of Sonora discontinuing its activities. As we end the following story with Beatrice Ngamu.
The rays of hope pointing towards the OPEC city of Limbe, southwest region, precisely on the National Refinery Company, following the signing of an agreement this Friday to restructure her bank debts.
By this agreement, we are convinced of the amount of the debt, 201 billion CFA, and the schedule of reimbursement, which is 10 years.
This coming against the backdrop of last May 2019, stopped activities, thus considerably limiting Sonora's capacity to honor her engagements vis-à-vis local banks, supplying crude oil and fiscal administration.
After the disaster, Sonora's debt was evaluated at about 717 billion CFA francs, 284 billion as bank indebtedness, alongside the threats on supply of petroleum products. The insolvency of Sonora was pushed to the collapse of the company.
Du système bancaire national au regard du volume de ces engagements.
Instead of discontinuance of services, Sonora will continue with its activities.
We reinforce the confidence between our stakeholders, particularly the banks, and we expect that we can benefit of more financement of this bank.
The technical work has been finalized.
Safe employment continue to supply Cameroon with petroleum products, very important in the economic market.
The outcome of 10 long months of negotiation by the working group charged with the responsibility to revive and restructure Sonora's indebtedness.
Principals of schools across Cameroon have been told to reinforce the digitalization of payments method for their schools and innovation with objectives of securing and transparency in the collection and management of funds managed by schools. In a meeting in Cameroon's economic city, Douala today, the Minister of Secondary Education gave firm instructions while explaining procedures to principals and partners. More in the following story.
3 years after the introduction of the digitalization of payments methods for secondary schools, the results are far from being satisfactory on the field. Some principals are still resistant, while remote communities are affected with constant electricity cuts amidst other problems.
We used to lose some of the fees, the payment, because children could give their money, their fees anywhere. But now we know that it is directed online. And there we can really have the first of all go and pay and then bring the receipts.
In a meeting in Douala, October 15, which brought together principals of secondary schools and partners to MINISEC, the Minister of Secondary Education warns against certain practices from partners that influences corrupt practices within the school milieu.
I think it's a wonderful idea. I thought that you will be clapping right up to the skies for these people, because I think thinking of those who don't have it. And we're going to make it possible that you take it only at the beginning of the year, so that when it gets to a certain point, you have paid it all. It is not a matter of somebody has paid my money and you just go and rest.
Education experts in the course of the meeting explains the digitalization payment procedure and benefits.
We wanted to give to that to give to the management of funds of our schools traceability and transparency, to bring good management, no mismanagement in the funds of our schools.
The innovation, according to experts, will help curb corruption and other malpractices within the school milieu. And with the digitalization of payment procedures, experts insist it will improve transparency and security in the collection and payment of funds managed by schools.
In line with the commemoration of the International Day of Universal Access to Information, the Cameroon's Minister of Communication joined other counterparts in other African countries seeking measures to ameliorate the management of information, especially in a public sphere. The exchange through a video conference this October 15, 2021 was organized by UNESCO, working towards instituting a new legal framework to guide communication. More with a student journalist. The
right to know, building back better with access to information was the theme that marked the celebration of the International Day for Universal Access of Information, advocating era of half information, commemorated every 28 September. On a video conference, Cameroon Minister of Communication this October 15 joined his African colleagues from Congo way forward in guaranteeing public access to information, protecting fundamental rights and freedom to meet international norms. Thanks to such legal and institutional environment, the Minister of Communication, René Emmanuel Sade, affirms that Cameroon currently has a system of freedom of business and publication in the field of media.
The number of press that we have in our country, of televisions, online media, and the I would say the freedom of speech, because people, when you listen to journalists, you can say that in our country, people are free to say what they think.
Facilitating access to information. To stop the spread of fake news and images, journalists are called upon to take due responsibilities. In line with this, the Communication Boss announced the possible adoption of new laws to govern communication access and management of information relating to freedom of social communication.
The signing of specific accords between Cameroon, CAF, and FIFA in preparation for the 2021 African Cup of Nations has been announced for Tuesday, October 19. The document, which some Cameroonians think is coming a little bit late, less than 3 months to the competition, is however welcomed by other Cameroonians. Heinz Che has the rest of that story.
The long-awaited accord of specifications between Cameroon, host nation of the Total African Cup of Nations, and the Confederation of African Football, CAF, and FIFA, is finally at the corner, launching a training seminar with CAF and FIFA agents at the conference room of the Olembe Sports Complex this Thursday, October 14, on the maintenance of the different playgrounds. Prior to the January 6th football fiesta, the Minister for Sport and Physical Education, Narcisse Mwole Kombi, announced the signing of the preparation accord on October 19, a relief news for sports journalists in the nation's political capital.
With the coming of this agreement, it makes the rest of us, the sport journalists, to actually have confidence, as because everything we have been doing in the past, it has always remained skeptical.
Though uncertainty looms over who shall sign the documents for Cameroon, given that the Cameroon Football Federation is divided into factions with each headed by a president.
There is a lot of bohaha when it comes to that sector. A lot of people wanted that by now we could have been through with all those differences in the house for us to have a definite way forward. But I think after Tuesday we are going to have a different orientation.
The coming of the document reaffirms Cameroon as host of the African biggest soccer jamboree, and many think it is time to put Cameroon and Cameroonians in football colors.
We'd like to see much more commitment from stakeholders, sports stakeholders in the country. We need to see the effervescence, the ambience on the streets. People around banners and flyers should be indicating that the AFCON is coming to Cameroon. It's the continent's flagship football tournament, and therefore we should see a different dimension.
And talking about the much-awaited Olembe Sports Complex, which is one of the key sites of the upcoming AFCON event, Narcisse Mwole Kombi reassures Cameroonians that the sports jewel will be delivered on November 30th, 2021.
And that report by Heinz Cha brings us to the end of this edition of Newscast in the English language on Canal the International. Thanks so much for watching, but we'll have news in the French language coming up at exactly this 9:50 with Aimé Kassimokuri. But coming up next is The Brief with Buba and Gomna. So me, I'll be back on Monday with another edition of Newscast. Thanks so much. Good night.